I've transmigrated into the novel as that man who climbed the social ladder through his wife. My wife is beautiful and considerate, even handing over all her family's wealth to me. Yet all I could think about was getting divorced as soon as possible. What money worth my very life is at stake here. This is a classic rebirth revenge novel with a strong female lead. If I don't run now, I'll definitely die horribly in the future. While waiting for the bus, I casually picked a trending novel from Reddit. Because I was poor and short-sighted, I chose a pirated version, and now I'm paying the price. Out of nowhere, I transmigrated into this novel, becoming the infamous gold digger Ethan Miller, who shares my name. The moment I opened my eyes, curses rang in my ears. This is my son's house. I can do whatever I want. You're already carrying the Miller family's seed. Who do you think you are daring to raise your voice at me? Then I saw a slender figure being shoved violently by a vicious-looking old woman. Without thinking, I rushed forward and cushioned her fall with my body. The impact forced a grunt from me. It nearly sent me straight to the afterlife. Ethan, what's wrong? Are you okay? The old woman's fierce expression instantly transformed into panic as she rushed over and roughly pulled the person off me. The woman who'd been shoved aside was gradually regaining clarity in her eyes. Within seconds, her gaze toward me turned razor sharp. Her entire demeanor became icy and menacing. This was a rebirth revenge story featuring a strong female lead. According to the plot, she must have just been reborn. And I'm that scumbag who's about to be brutally tortured to death by her. Too depressed, I lay sprawled on the floor, trying to recall the plot. The female lead, Isabella Vance, was young and naive, deceived by a man like Ethan, who took advantage of her both emotionally and financially. What a tragic fall for a wealthy heiress reduced to fighting with homeless people for food, enduring endless humiliation and scorn from outsiders. In the end, he couldn't even afford a 2 yuan cold pill and died miserably from illness in a dark alley corner. In the freezing cold, his corpse wasn't discovered until it had nearly rotted away. So when given a second chance, she struck back, fiercely slapping faces and crushing scum, ultimately expanding her father's business into greatness, completing her journey as the triumphant heroine of a satisfying revenge story. And coincidentally, I am precisely that villain who's about to be beaten down by her. She wanted me to taste the suffering she endured, so she orchestrated my delivery to some black site in Mexico, where after prolonged inhuman treatment, I was tortured to death. Just the thought of it makes my hair stand on end. I clearly remember that today, after clashing with her mother-in-law, she was pushed down, suffered a miscarriage, and fell into a coma. Even worse, after she fell into a coma, her father's condition suddenly took a turn for the worse, which prevented her from seeing her father one last time, losing both her child and father within a single day. Isabella naturally blamed the Miller family for these two blood debts. Wait, I scrambled up from the ground. I had just saved Isabella. She didn't miscarry, so naturally she wouldn't fall into a coma either. That means she might still make it in time to see her father one last time. Do I still have a chance to survive? Just then, Isabella's phone suddenly rang. Her expression changed abruptly when she answered the call, and she hurried toward the door. My chance to survive has come. Do you have something urgent? Let me take you there. Listening to the muffled sobs coming from the hospital room, I sighed as I sat outside. I couldn't save Isabella's father, but at least I made sure Isabella got to see him one last time. That should spare her some regret. Looking at the documents in my hand, my expression turned complicated. I had to admit Isabella had truly been good to the original owner of this body. These documents detailed the portion of the inheritance ID received, something the former Isabella had fought hard with her father to secure for me. Though her father had ultimately relented, his experience showed. When leaving the shares to Ethan Miller, he deliberately imposed restrictions. Ethan could only enjoy dividends and was not allowed to buy or sell freely. His sole trading partner could only be Isabella. Even so, this remained a colossal sum that allowed him to indulge in boundless wealth and luxury. Yet Ethan Miller remained insatiable, coveting even more. Considering all the despicable deeds the original host had committed, his fate, being exiled by the reborn female lead and meeting a miserable end in Mexico, was nothing less than deserved. But why must I bear the blame for the original owner's mistakes? Just as I was lamenting my miserable fate, Isabella stumbled out, her face deathly pale. The next second, she collapsed heavily onto the floor, and this time, I failed to catch her. For in the end, the child couldn't be saved. Under this double blow, Isabella's mind began to grow increasingly unstable. That fall took away the last blood relative she had in this world. Looking at Isabella lying on the hospital bed, her eyes vacant and lips deathly pale, my heart ached for her, yet I also feared for myself. The child was still lost with this debt be pinned on me. Just as I was about to subtly probe her attitude, my nominal mother, Brenda Miller, stormed in furiously. Where's my precious grandson? She planted her hands on her hips and shouted at Isabella, lying on the hospital bed. What's wrong with you? After marrying into our Miller family for a year, You finally got pregnant. I've been serving you good food and drinks every day, and you actually lost my precious grandson. And who do you think you are? How dare you stay in a private room? Get your ass back home. Right now the money you're spending now belongs to my son. Our Miller family can't afford to keep such a wasteful daughter-in-law. Isabella remained as if she and T heard her gaze still fixed blankly on the window. She's trying to hurry my death. I quickly stood up to stop her. Can't you see she's feeling unwell? Besides, she's spending her own money. In fact, not only was Isabella spending her own money, the entire Miller family was living off her. When Brenda faced me, her tone softened, but her attitude remained entitled. My dear son, what has gotten into you? Why are you siding with this barren woman? Besides, she's married to you. Now, everything she owns naturally belongs to you. Taking advantage of my presence, she shrieked at Isabella like a shrew. Listen here, you'd better recover quickly. I'm giving you 1 month. You must give me a grandson, otherwise I'll make my son divorce you. Even as an outsider, I could barely stand hearing such words, yet Isabella remained completely motionless. I tried to pull her away. Could you please step outside first? But Brenda stood rooted to the spot and even comforted me. Don't worry, I already know her father is dead. Now she has got no parents left, and she has just a used up secondhand goods who has had an abortion. Who knows how many men she has been with before her body is so filthy that why she miscarried no one would want her except you. Slap, I struck her across the face, successfully shutting her up. This finally made Isabella turn her head to look at me in surprise. Can you shut up? I roared. You keep calling others trash. But aren't you a woman yourself? The fact that you were even born probably owes to the lack of technology back then to detect you were female. I never claimed to be a good person. Ever since transmigrating here, all I've thought about was how to survive the female lead's wrath. But what this old hag said was truly despicable. You get food and shelter every day because of my face. What the hell are you anyway? Fed and pampered with the finest. Have you forgotten who you really are? If you're so unhappy with this life where people wait on you hand and foot, get the hell back to your hometown. Out of respect for you being my mother, I solemnly warn, don't let me hear you utter even one word about Isabella. Otherwise, don't blame me for personally throwing you out. Brenda had never been treated this way by her obedient son before. Faced with my furious expression, the previously arrogant woman actually showed a hint of fear. My dear, don't be angry. Mom only has your best interests at heart. If you're unhappy, I'll leave for now. After speaking, she glared fiercely at Isabella. Even though I was the one who lashed out at her, she directed her resentment toward Isabella. But out of consideration for me, Brenda ultimately left with a face full of resentment. The person on the hospital bed let out a mocking laugh, as if watching a good show. 6. I almost forgot, currying favor with this one is the real priority. Coincidentally, the nourishing soup I had specially ordered arrived. Just then, I quickly opened it and eagerly presented it to Isabella. Are you hungry? Would you like some? It's still warm. Isabella looked at the soup being offered to her, and the smile on her face suddenly vanished. She spoke lightly. No need, you should keep it for yourself. Noticing her overly cold expression, I finally realized something was wrong. Recalling the original plot where Brenda, to ensure Isabella would bear son, brought her various folk remedies daily, forcing her to drink them with filthy words. At that time, Isabella hadn't awakened, yet faced with her mother-in-law's excessive interference, disguised as concern, she didn't say much and obediently drank it all. But those medicinal soups Brenda had randomly concocted were not only foul-tasting, but also contained bizarre ingredients. Isabella forced herself to drink them, but after repeated doses, she developed habitual vomiting and severe gastrointestinal issues. Remembering this past incident while looking at the soup in my own hands, I can almost chop my own hand off in regret. What a terrible miscalculation. I'm done for Isabella. Must be even more determined to kill me now. 7. Isabella was discharged from the hospital soon after and moved back home. This 3-story mansion was her father's property and served as their marital home after the wedding. After marriage, Ethan used the excuse of taking care of Isabella to bring Brenda over. After she arrived, she immediately put on airs as the mother-in-law and tormented Isabella relentlessly. Of course, all of this was repaid tenfold after Isabella was reborn. Watching her enter the bedroom, I collapsed onto the sofa, utterly exhausted. At the same time, a message popped up on my phone. Buddy, I'm telling you this as a true friend. Treat your wife better. She has had it rough. The sender was Kevin, Ethan's college roommate, and the only person who genuinely cared about the original host. Of course, Ethan failed to cherish this friendship, and they eventually parted on bad terms. But now I'm here, and he might just become a key to my survival. I picked up my phone and replied, thanks bro, I've realized my mistakes now, and will treat her right from now on. Kevin was clearly delighted your brain's finally working properly. You're one lucky bastard. Your wife's gorgeous and loaded. Even after how your mom treated her, she still hasn't asked for a divorce. Count your blessings. Wait. I sat bolt upright. Suddenly, I remembered a plot point from the book. The first thing Isabella did after recovering from her rebirth was file for divorce from Ethan Miller. Ethan certainly wasn't willing. With his most feared father-in-law already dead, he naturally assumed all of Isabella's family wealth would become his. So he began acting even more recklessly and self-destructively. As a result, Isabella's retaliation against him grew even more fierce. But I'm not the original owner. I'd be more than happy to divorce. In the days that followed, I appointed myself as Isabella's assistant. Whenever the boss needed anything, I was at her beck and call, ready to serve without hesitation. When Isabella worked, I prepared afternoon tea, even learning from the chef to carve apples into adorable little rabbits. On bad weather days, I'd stand by the door, thoughtfully offering Isabella an umbrella before she stepped out. At the dinner table, Brenda was just about to start lecturing her daughter-in-law. I slammed my chopsticks down on the table with a smack. Can we just eat properly? If you can't, then get out. After days of my efforts, Isabella had finally become slightly less sharp and cold toward me. We could even occasionally exchange a few words in peace. After all this effort, what I've been yearning for day and night is just that one divorce agreement. Yet several days have passed, and she still hasn't brought it up. I thought, damn it, this one-way ticket to Mexico is as good as mine. On the 9th day, while queuing for the pastry Isabella loves, half a city away, Brenda's call came through. Even through the phone, I could feel her joy. Sweetheart, why didn't you tell Mom such wonderful news earlier? Were you trying to surprise me? I was completely baffled. What good news on the other end of the line? She was practically beaming with laughter. Chloe, the precious grandchild in her belly, is already 4 months along, and you still kept it from me. If she hadn't come looking for you today, I'd still be in the dark. What a child fuck. How could I have forgotten about that? Ethan Miller not only sucked the female lead dry, but also kept a mistress on the side. The mistress's pregnancy perfectly aligned with Brenda's hopes. She delivered a son in one go. Ethan didn't dare expose the mistress publicly, but she was ambitious nonetheless. Upon hearing about Isabella's miscarriage, the mistress immediately marched over with her swollen belly to force a confrontation, causing a huge scene. Damn it, I rushed home in a panic. If Isabella caught me now, I'd be dead meat for sure. The moment I pushed open the front door, my blood pressure skyrocketed. I was still too late. After all, every servant in the house was being ordered around, and the 5-meter-long dining table was crammed with all sorts of tonics. At one end of the table sat a woman, imperiously making endless demands of the servants. Brenda stood by the side, her face beaming with smug satisfaction as she kept offering various items to the other person. Upon seeing me enter, the person immediately rose from their seat at the table. She wore a camel-colored cashmere sweater, its tight fit unabashedly accentuating her belly. Though her stomach only showed a slight swell, she placed her hands behind her back to support her waist while deliberately thrusting her belly forward. Ethan, you're back. I was absolutely furious. Who told you to take out all those expensive imported caviar jars? There were at least dozens of caviar cans displayed, with dozens more open boxes beside them. Chloe said she was hungry, so I took out a little extra. Brenda said nonchalantly, do you think this is rice? These premium caviars are priceless and hard to come by. Even Isabella only opens as much as she eats. Wait, what's this now? My gaze fell on the mistress. She probably thought I was looking at her belly, shyly lowering her head. Isn't it obvious? It's been 4 months already. If she weren't pregnant, my slap would have landed on her face long ago. I'm talking about these things on you. What are they? The jade bracelet on the mistress's wrist, the gemstone brooch on her clothes, the diamond necklace around her neck. I recognized every single one of them. Chloe instinctively tried to cover her wrist, but in doing so, she exposed the diamond ring on her right hand. My face paled. How did this end up in your hands? What the hell is going on? Brenda's eyes darted evasively. Chloe just saw it while browsing and thought it looked nice, so I let her wear it for fun. I roared in anger. This belongs to Isabella. Did you even get her permission before touching it? Brenda said nonchalantly, she has so many things. What's the harm in giving Chloe a few? Chloe is carrying the precious heir of our Miller family. Now she needs to stay in a good mood at all times. Taking away so many things, how could it possibly be as simple as just casually browsing? A bad premonition rose in my heart. Without time to confront them, I rushed upstairs in great strides and pushed open Isabella's door. The once neat and tidy room looked as if it had been ransacked by robbers. Every drawer was flung open, clothes strewn across the bed and floor. The cosmetics that had been neatly arranged on the table were now all opened and used, with even lipstick marks left on the makeup mirror. The cabinet where Isabella used to store her expensive handbags had been forcibly opened, and the bags were now crammed together haphazardly. I could clearly see scratches all over them. As for the places where the jewelry had been kept, every single piece had mysteriously vanished. I stood frozen outside the door, bracing myself against the doorframe. Just then the sound of the front door opening echoed from downstairs. Isabella is back. I'm completely screwed. 11. Isabella stood at the restaurant entrance, dressed in a fitted apricot-colored suit. I stood nervously before her. I'm sorry this time. It really was my fault. But Isabella didn't even glance at me. She pointed at the other woman. Put my things down and get out of my house. Chloe immediately tried to hide behind me, but I swiftly dodged away. Home record, don't you dare come near me. Seeing this, Chloe could only bite her lower lip with a pitiful expression. Aunt Brenda gave me all these things, Isabella. Please don't be angry. I was just borrowing them for a while. I didn't have any other intentions. As she spoke, she slowly slid the bracelet off her wrist, and Isabella reached out to take it. The mistress let out a soft gasp and suddenly fumbled the bracelet, was about to crash onto the floor. Isabella's face instantly paled at the critical moment. I lunged forward and caught the bracelet in midair, heaving a huge sigh of relief. The other jewelry didn't matter, but this bracelet was a gift from Isabella's father for her 20th birthday. It held special meaning for her. Isabella's expression softened considerably. She took the bracelet from my hand, wiped it disdainfully with a handkerchief, then carefully put it away. Seeing this, the mistress covered her mouth with a hypocritical look. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." I smiled insincerely. "Whether you meant it or not isn't for us to decide." Her face changed slightly. "What do you mean?" The police officer at the door answered for me. "Miss Chloe, you are currently suspected of trespassing, illegal occupation, and damaging others' property. Please come with us." 11. Even as she was being led to the door, the mistress continued weeping pitifully. She pointed at Brenda. "Those things were all given to me by her. I didn't take them on my own initiative." Brenda was still trying to make me change my mind. "Sweetheart, how could you call the police? Chloe mustn't go to such a place. It's bad for the baby in her belly." I turned to look at her, and what does that have to do with me? Brenda glared at me reproachfully. "How could it not concern you? That's your child in her belly." I smirked with schadenfreude. "That's not my seed. If this child really were a Miller, her upstairs neighbor, Mr. Wong, might not be too pleased." Seeing me say this, the mistress, who had just looked innocent, immediately became guilty. "How did you know?" Brenda froze in place. "What this isn't our Miller family's child. I'd long known from the book that this child wasn't Ethan's." The mistress stiffened her neck, stubbornly refusing to admit. "It's not certain. Based on the timeline, there's still a high possibility." Brenda didn't listen to her excuses at all. She lunged at her. In one swift motion, her 10 rough and sharp fingers immediately leaving scratch marks all over the mistress's body and face. "You bitch, spit out everything I've fed you and give back the $200,000 I just transferred to you." Seeing that her face or livelihood had been injured, the mistress immediately let out a piercing scream. Her combat skills were quite impressive as she instantly grabbed Brenda's hair and mercilessly kicked her stomach several times. The two women tangled in a fierce fight, the mistress gripping Brenda's hair, lost her balance momentarily and nearly tore off a chunk of her scalp. I then pulled out a bank card from my pocket and handed it to Isabella. "Here, this is for you." Isabella instinctively took it, but her eyes were filled with confusion. I grinned and said, "I saw my mom's money in her room a couple of days ago. I'll give it all to you as compensation for the mental distress this has caused." Strictly speaking, all of this was essentially wool that Brenda had plucked from Isabella. On the other side, Brenda wasn't in such a good mood. Furious and heartbroken, she screamed, "My money, my precious grandson." With a final scream, he passed out completely. After the mistress incident, I sent Brenda to a sanatorium under the pretext of being concerned about her health. As for the mistress herself, since she was pregnant, she was released on bail and placed under house arrest. However, I thoughtfully informed our upstairs neighbor, Mr. Wong, of this good news. I'm sure her days at home wouldn't be too boring. I had been worried that Isabella would grow even colder toward me because of this incident for several days. I even avoided her, afraid she might confront me for an explanation. To her surprise, she acted as if nothing had happened at all. "What are you standing there for? Come and eat." I stood on the stairs, unsure whether to go down. Hearing her words, I immediately took a few quick steps and sat down at the dining table. After finishing the meal, though there wasn't much conversation, I couldn't shake the feeling that the air was thick with something unspoken. I pretended to sip my soup, while stealing glances at Isabella. Her profile was strikingly beautiful with a high, elegant nose. A strand of hair slipped down the side of her face, swaying gently with her movements. For some reason, I can't help feeling a bit itchy-handed. Just as I was engrossed in peeking, Isabella suddenly spoke. "Finished eating? Come upstairs with me." I was startled and coughed violently twice. All right, Isabella led me to the study. She sat down and gestured toward a document on the desk with a tilt of her chin. I looked and saw the document. I had signed a voluntary renunciation of all inheritance rights, transferring everything to Isabella. "What's the matter? There shouldn't be any issues, right?" I specifically had a lawyer review it. Isabella crossed her arms, watching the scene unfold with amusement. "So you're saying you voluntarily signed this agreement yourself?" I nodded. She looked me over and asked why. I naturally replied, "These were always yours to begin with. I'm merely returning what rightfully belongs to you. This money and these shares were deceitfully obtained by Ethan Miller in the past. They never truly belonged to me. This thing is a curse to me, and I've calculated the shares Isabella currently holds combined with what I'm transferring will give her enough stake to have a decisive voice in the company. With these, she certainly wouldn't have to work so hard anymore." Perhaps my answer was too resolute, as Isabella clearly hesitated for a moment. When she spoke again, her tone, unexpectedly, carried a hint of gentleness. Understood, as I left, I distinctly heard her whisper behind me. "Thank you." I maintained my composure and exited the study with an indifferent expression. Then she quickly ran back to her room and locked the door. Isabella actually thanked me. This must be a sign that the divorce papers are waving at me. 14. The peaceful days didn't last long before a call came through to my phone. "Ethan Miller, what's going on with you?" The woman's voice on the phone was full of impatience. "I told you to dilute Isabella's shares. So why has her stake actually increased now?" Hearing these words, I suddenly realized what was happening. The person on the phone must be Isabella's cousin Melissa Vance. She could be considered the biggest villain in the entire book since childhood. She has been jealous of Isabella copying her fashion style, stealing her close friends. In short, she was intensely envious of everything Isabella possessed. Thus, upon discovering that Isabella had actually married such a short-sighted social climber, she immediately seized the opportunity to exploit it. In the original story, due to the restrictions on the shares Isabella's father left to Ethan, he could only access limited funds. Coupled with his inability to be content with the status quo, he was quickly seduced by Melissa. Working together from inside and out, the two of them quickly drained all the funds from Isabella's father's company. However, the current me would never do such a thing. I can't even be bothered to deal with this woman. She's just a grasshopper after autumn, doomed anyway. But just before hanging up, I suddenly realized this might be a perfect opportunity to clean up my own image. Although the reborn Isabella successfully regained control of the company, she paid a heavy price in the process. If I could be an inside agent and help Isabella dismantle the opposing forces from within, she should win much more easily. At the same time, it would also let her see my determination when it comes to saving my own life. I want to be vague. After pondering for a moment, I spoke into the phone. "It's a long story. Let us meet and talk." And almost at the same time as my meeting with Melissa, a set of photographs was placed on Isabella's desk. After interacting with Melissa, I finally understood their plan. They intended to use a fake project to embezzle company funds, then establish a new company to transfer assets through capital injections. The original owner was truly criminal. I muttered to myself, mimicking his short-sighted greed as I spoke. "The profit share you're offering me is too small. I want to do it." Melissa wore an impatient expression, but still tried to placate me. "Don't worry, this is just a deposit. Once everything is settled, you'll naturally get your share of the new company's stocks." I reluctantly agreed, while secretly compiling all their plans and arrangements to hand over to Isabella. Though her recent gaze always made my skin crawl, my heart remained as steadfast toward her as ever. After all, she's a woman holding a one-way ticket to Mexico. As the meeting concluded, Melissa couldn't hide her smugness, rising with a coquettish laugh while picking up her bag. "It's been ages since I visited my cousin. The timing is perfect today. I think I'll go see her." As if I couldn't tell, she just wants to go deliberately provoke Isabella. Who would have thought that upon returning home, I'd run into Isabella coming downstairs. Seeing us, she spoke coldly, "Why are you together?" I froze. I forgot to stagger our return times. But Melissa had thicker skin. She gave me a coquettish glance and said coyly, "I just happened to run into brother-in-law." My skin crawled with disgust, and I nearly vomited but had to force it back down. I frantically waved my hands at Isabella, trying to prove my innocence. Melissa feigned concern while deliberately poking at Isabella's sore spot. "Cousin, you must have had a really tough time lately with uncle passing, so suddenly the pressure must be overwhelming for you. You don't have to work so hard. We're family. Why can't we share the burden together?" Isabella wasn't having any of it. "Well, thank you very much." Before leaving, she gave me a fleeting glance. Though her gaze seemed light for some reason, it left me feeling deeply unsettled. 16. I spent the whole day restless and on edge. To save my own skin, I gritted my teeth and knocked on her study door. "I've survived this long. Can't give up now. What needs to be given must still be given. This thing is my only bargaining chip now. Got to take the gamble." Isabella looked up from the documents, meeting my gaze with an icy tone. "What is it?" Trembling with fear, I handed over the thing that could save my life. Isabella eyed me suspiciously, my stomach twisted with nerves, but thankfully she took it. She casually flipped through the pages, then froze. It was Melissa's entire plan. Her gaze locked onto me. "Are you sure this is for me?" I feigned composure. If this didn't work, I truly wouldn't know how to win her favor anymore. Isabella suddenly called out to me, her tone turning solemn. "Ethan Miller, why are you giving these to me?" "Because I want to survive." That was what I originally wanted to say. Yet for some reason, when I met her calm, deep black eyes, I couldn't utter a single word. Isabella didn't press me after a long silence, seeing that I was still stammering and unable to give an answer. She sighed. "I understand you may leave now. I still have work to do." Watching her coldly lower her head to resume work, I impulsively blurted out, Because I need money." Isabella looked up at me in astonishment. Having come this far, I might as well gamble. I pulled over a chair and sat down before her. I have an idea that can completely eliminate Melissa, leaving you with no worries, but my condition is that after it's done, you'll give me some compensation for my efforts. I've thought it over. If I want to leave Isabella, then in this unfamiliar world, I must have sufficient funds to live comfortably. Isabella smiled, raising an eyebrow, as she asked me, "What's your plan?" 17 the next day, I took the initiative to arrange a meeting with Melissa. Melissa handed me the fake proposal. "You can handle this, right?" I nodded absent-mindedly. "Leave it to me." The moment I said that, Melissa looked even more uneasy. I knew she didn't trust Ethan Miller, this man. After all, in the original story, she had prepared a backup plan by secretly bribing others. This made Isabella even more caught off guard and left her struggling to respond. What I need to do now is dispel her suspicions. I pretended to flip through the proposal, growing increasingly impatient the more I read. "Your project is way too complicated, ISNT. It especially all this data, it's unnecessarily detailed." Melissa gave me a disdainful look and said, "If it's not to this extent, how could we possibly deceive Isabella?" I looked unconvinced. "I've seen all her projects. The proposals are all very simple. I can understand them easily. There's no need for you to go to all this trouble." Melissa immediately became agitated. "What, you can see all of her projects?" This foolish woman, ISNT, much either taking the bait so easily. Lazily, I pulled out a USB drive from my pocket. "Here, consider it a welcome gift. No need to thank me." Without even glancing at me, she excitedly opened her computer to check its contents. After a long while, Melissa's lips curled into a mocking smile. I never thought that after Uncle left, Isabella could only come up with such projects. As expected, she is far inferior to me. To keep up the act, I pretended not to understand and leaned in closer. "What's wrong with these projects?" Melissa glanced at me arrogantly, her tone brimming with excitement. "You don't need to know. With your brain, you wouldn't understand any of this anyway." With Isabella's level of competence, presenting this proposal to her is practically a sure bet. I picked up my tea and took a sip, hiding the smile at the corner of my mouth. 18 Melissa's plan was progressing smoothly. Soon, she had nearly emptied the funds from Isabella's company accounts. This made her even more confident, increasingly convinced that Isabella was nothing but an incompetent fool. At the same time, she looked down on me even more and felt reassured. "Ethan Miller, where have you been fooling around again? Today is the press conference for the launch of our new company, and also the day I completely crush Isabella beneath my feet. At such a crucial moment, I absolutely won't allow you to cause any trouble." I replied with the same indifference. "Got it. I'm on my way." After hanging up the phone, I turned to Isabella beside me. "Are you ready? The show is about to begin." Isabella was clearly much calmer than me as she adjusted her cuffs. "Of course I can't let my cousin down." At my suggestion, the press conference was conducted through a combination of live QA and online streaming. Hello to the journalists present here and our online audience. I'm Melissa Vance. Today marks our Mungza Corporation S. I sat on the stage, but my gaze kept drifting to the iPad beside me. Numerous bullet comments were rapidly scrolling across its screen. America's most beautiful female CEO. Oh my God, the beautiful lady is not only gorgeous, but also so capable. At first glance, it's all just flattery. I strongly suspect Melissa has hired a PR team. How utterly despicable, Miss Vance. What are your thoughts on the recent consecutive setbacks and continuous stock decline of your cousin Isabella Vance's company? Suddenly, I heard a reporter's question from below. I knew Melissa had arranged this on purpose. On such an important day, how could she resist stepping on Isabella a couple more times? Melissa's expression instantly turned mournful. "I deeply regret this matter. My uncle was an extremely capable businessman. Who would have thought that just after leaving the company he would?" Melissa sniffled, "But I know my cousin truly did her best. It's just that as things stand, the results aren't ideal, though it's certainly not her fault. Here I also solemnly pledge that our company will do its utmost to assist Isabella in the future. We will strive to establish a profound partnership with her to achieve mutual success." See how well spoken he is. With just a few words, he both belittled Isabella's capabilities and showcased his own magnanimity. This approach clearly worked wonders. Instantly, the barrage of flattering comments in the live chat grew even more intense. Such a beautiful and kind-hearted CEO. How can she be so good? Even at a time like this, she remembers to support her family. Others were mocking Isabella. The Vance family's eldest daughter shows her true colors. Her father just left, and the company is already failing with such poor ability. It's better for her to step down sooner rather than later. Not just online, even the reporters present at the scene nodded in agreement after hearing Melissa's words. This was clearly a scene Melissa was more than happy to witness. Just as she was about to put on another act of sisterly affection, a cold, clear voice rang out from the doorway. "Really then, I must properly thank my dear cousin." 20 Melissa's brow twitched violently as she forced a strained smile. "Annie, what brings you here? How's the company doing lately? Is it all right for you to come?" Isabella strode in with vigorous steps. "On such an important day as your aunt I couldn't possibly miss it. She came to a stop before Melissa, her gaze intense. And to express my congratulations and gratitude, I've specially brought a gift. She raised her hand slightly, and I immediately understood, standing up. I walked to the podium and inserted a USB drive into the computer. Melissa stared at my actions in shock. I opened the contents of the USB drive, some screenshots. However, these screenshots had been compiled into a video for easier viewing. The video projected onto the floor, the ceiling LED screen began to play. What kind of person is Isabella Vance with her father dead? She's obviously nothing to be afraid of. How has her father's health lately? That medicine I told you to get, make sure you get it as soon as possible. Too slow. Why isn't her father dead? Yet didn't I tell you to tamper with his 4-bag? If it's not working, just increase the dosage. I can't wait any longer. Her father is already dead, and Isabella has taken the bait. Next, I'll be the wealthiest man in this city. Setting up a new company costs too much. Help me figure out a way to pay less in taxes. That way, I can save a fortune. The crowd below and the online viewers in the live stream exploded into chaos with a flood of insults pouring in nonstop. Melissa's face drained of color. No, none of that is true. It's all slander. I didn't do any of this. Melissa staggered to her feet, trying to rush to the podium to turn off those projections. Unfortunately, she wouldn't get that chance, because she was already surrounded by reporters. Miss Vance, what's the meaning of these screenshots? Was your uncle's death related to you? Miss Vance, has the recent financial deficit in Vance Corporation been connected to you? Are you suspected of tax evasion? Did you commit murder? One sharp question after another was hurled directly at Melissa's face. Veins bulged on Melissa's forehead, her features contorted, and her chest heaved violently. If she can hire people to sneak in, of course, I can too. Murderers should die. Suddenly, a water bottle flew out from the crowd. Below, Melissa couldn't dodge in time, and her forehead was immediately cut open. This seemed to flip some kind of switch as more bottles kept being thrown from below. Some of the bottles weren't properly sealed, drenching Melissa from head to toe. Melissa screamed and tried to dodge, but it was no use at all. Her hair was soaked, hanging messily on her head, and her clothes clung damply to her body, stained with splotches of different colors. She looked completely different from her previously glamorous self. Melissa had completely lost its screaming. Who did this? Who gave you the audacity? I'm going to be the richest person in this city. How dare any of you treat me like this? Far from intimidating anyone, her words only made her appear even more pitiful. Some people even grabbed notebooks and other items from the table and threw them at her. How dare a murderer act so arrogantly? She's utterly despicable. Melissa flailed her arms helplessly as she collapsed into the pile of trash. No one would come to save her. This was exactly what she deserved. She's now practically famous across the entire internet, destined to live forever in others' contempt. 1 second before she was stoned to death, someone strode into the crowd, holding up an official badge. We've received reports of suspected murder, financial crimes, tax evasion, and malicious business competition. The suspect must come with us immediately. Isabella watched everything unfold before her, her gaze as detached as if observing some irrelevant farce. She should have been happy, and indeed she did laugh. Yet that smile was filled with sorrow, and as she laughed, tears slowly began to fall from her eyes. I walked to her side, watching her rare moment of vulnerability, and hesitated for a while. I reached out and gently placed my hand on her shoulder, a gesture meant to embrace. I gave her ample time to refuse, yet Isabella suddenly threw herself into my arms. Before long, a warmth began to spread across my chest. Her embrace was so tight it hurt, but I didn't resist at all, because I could feel Isabella trembling faintly in my arms. I raised my hand to stroke her silky hair and sighed as I spoke. It's all right now. Everything is over. After that live stream, Isabella became an internet sensation. Some praised her as a courageous and resourceful heroine, while media outlets reported that her beauty is the least remarkable of her virtues. Countless collaborators sought her out, and her schedule was fully booked until next month. As for Melissa, with multiple charges against her, she's now right where she belongs. All that awaits her is a sliver of sky beyond iron bars and endless scorn. In comparison, I seem to have faded into obscurity, but that's just as well. At the very least, my life is spared. Once Isabella settles down, I'll implement my final plan, divorcing her. Then I'll completely distance myself from all these conflicts and escape the plotline of a gruesome death. After a long time, we finally sat together at the same dining table. Isabella ate the toast on her plate, her eyes downcast, her expression unreadable. Do you want a divorce? I countered. What about you? Isabella froze for a moment before answering frankly. Of course I do. Just as I guessed, the corner of my mouth twitched upward. Well, there you have it. The atmosphere at the dinner table suddenly grew heavy. I tried to lighten the mood. That is a good thing. Free from a man like me who climbed the social ladder through women, you'll definitely be happier than you are now. Isabella looked up at me upon hearing this. Is that what you think? Of course, I tried to make my reply sound as lighthearted as possible. Isabella nodded. I breathed a sigh of relief. Once divorced with Isabella's temperament, she would absolutely never do anything to me again. I finally got rid of that one-way ticket to Mexico and obtained the long-awaited divorce papers. Yet why does my heart feel so heavy and joyless? 22. I moved out of the villa. After that day, we filed for divorce. According to regulations, there's a 1-month cooling-off period. I originally intended to wait until the divorce was finalized before leaving. But since that day, I've never been able to see Isabella at home again. I don't know if she's away on business or deliberately avoiding coming back, because I'm here. Whatever the reason, I can no longer stand the icy, lifeless feeling of being alone in the villa. After moving to the new place, I wallowed in depression for a few days. I wanted to invite Kevin out for drinks to lift my spirits, but each time he refused me with righteous indignation. And he was always sneaky and hard to figure out. It wasn't until a month later, after Isabella and I successfully divorced, that he rushed into my house excitedly. He turned my wardrobe upside down, and after long, while he disdainfully pointed at a suit and ordered me to put it on, ignoring my protests, he dragged me to the top floor of a luxury hotel. The best way to forget a relationship is to start a new one. Don't say, I'm not being a good bro. I've got it all arranged for you, no backing out now. A blind date. I just got divorced. I'm not even over the heartbreak yet. Furious, I stood up with a dark expression, ready to leave. But across from me, someone had already taken a seat. Hello, I'm Isabella Vance. Tell me, do I meet your requirements? Holy shit, I was nearly knocked out by this surprise. How could there be two Isabella Vances in this world? After getting back together, I tried to subtly hint to Isabella that I wasn't the original Ethan Miller. What a joke. The real Ethan Miller was a law-breaking social climber, while at best, I'm just a freeloader. Within seconds, her gaze toward me turned razor sharp. Just as I was racking my brains, trying to explain to Isabella that a white horse is not a horse using sophistry, she calmly spoke up. I know, I exclaimed in fright, letting out a series of duck-like quacks. She continued signing documents without looking up. I know you're not the original Ethan Miller. Otherwise, why do you think I insisted on getting a divorce first? So that is how it was. That divorce was Isabella's way of ending her marriage to the despicable Ethan Miller, so she could properly be with me. I was overjoyed and immediately pounced on her like a starving tiger. Darling, you're so good to me. Isabella was caught off guard and took the full brunt of my lunch. Before I silenced her with a kiss, she mumbled, I still have documents to review. No worries, I'll go through them with you. Tomorrow work could never compare to my wife's sweetness. The end.